135 lugers, the best in the world from 22 nations, have come to Königssee, Germany for the 50th FIL Luge World Championships. Hi everyone, I'm Tim Singer. Beautiful spot here, one of the most spectacular places in the world as we wind down this pandemic season. So happy to be bringing you action week in and week out. Another warm day in Bavaria with the temperature sitting, as you see, 4 degrees Celsius. That's 40 degrees the air temperature on the Fahrenheit scale. So far, no rain today. A little bit of rain is expected throughout the weekend of competition. Doubles right up now, followed by the men today. Tomorrow, women, and then the team relay on the oldest artificially refrigerated track in the world. Once again, I'm pleased to introduce my co-commentator for this weekend's World Championship, a two-time medalist from Team Canada, Alex Goff. Alex, good morning. Might be having some issues with Alex's connection there as we take a look at this point of view camera being provided by former Germany national team member Julian von Schleinitz. Julian is from right here in the Königssee area. This is his home. He is an engineering student in college in Munich, which affords him the opportunity to work on these metrics and the speeds and the G-forces that these athletes feel on the sled. You back with us, Alex?
I am back.
Great. Well, welcome. Good morning. Thanks again for joining us. You ready for a good doubles competition?
I am ready for a great doubles competition. Looking forward to what could be a very exciting race today.
Well, the way it'll work, we'll just let everyone know right off the bat, if you've been watching World Cup action, they present the race a little differently here at the World Championships. What will happen are the best in the world, the seeded group, will go first. All 26 will then take part in run number 1, and for the second and final heat, they pare this field down to only the top 18 will qualify for a second run. So we're ready to go right where we left off yesterday with the Sprint World Champions in the race on Friday morning. It's the two Tobys, the hometown folks from here in Bavaria, Toby Vendel and Toby Alt.
These guys will be looking to repeat their result from yesterday in the sprint.
They are the winningest decorated World Championship medalists of all time. They have, not including the sprint, they have 7. 3 golds, 3 silvers, and a bronze to go along with 2 Olympic golds.
They are legends in the sport at this point, and we'll be looking for them to have a great run down their home track.
2 runs, combined time. As we said, it's the best going first here at the Worlds.
They've had a great run here as they come into the lower section of the track, into the newly named Fent corner. And through this uphill section, they're just trying to carry as much speed as possible to the finish line.
It's exactly a half second slower than the track record here, a record set by this pair at the World Championships in 2016, early January that year. And we don't expect track records on a day this warm, but Alex, we've been known to be surprised on occasion.
Absolutely. You know, the track crew at Königssee is world class, and they can set up great track conditions in any weather, and wouldn't be surprised to see track record, particularly at World Championships, as they take great pride in preparing the track to the best they can. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't, if the Tobys are that far off, I likely wouldn't expect to see a track record today.
Well, we'll get another indication here with Tony Agert, Sasha Benniken. They're the defending world champions, having taken the title last year in Sochi. These two hooked in just before the Vancouver Olympics in 2010, which is about the time the Tobys started competing as well. They've taken over pretty well for the retiring Olympic champions, Leitner and Resch, Florschutz and Buslet, keeping this great German doubles tradition alive.
Yes, they have. Big start there from Tony and Sasha. Quite a bit faster than their teammates. Oh, that's a not great exit of S4 there. They almost did it too nicely and had direction towards the left wall, which is not what typically happens, but they've handled it really well, and we'll see how the rest of the run goes.
They finished third yesterday in the sprint event. They're still looking a little bit on edge here.
They're definitely on the edge of being able to control the sled, so there's a fine balance in the sport of luge where you need to have control to be able to drive the sled down, but
somehow it worked, and by 0.02 of a second.
Wow.
If nothing else happens and no one challenges the rest of the way out, this will be fun to see in run number 2. How many paddles is that, Alex? So we have the 2 Germans down. Still a third German sled to come in a little bit. But now we pay attention to the first of the Latvian pairs. Another highly decorated doubles team, although not so much at the World Championships. Andres and Joris Sheiks, who yesterday had a podium in the sprint competition. It's been a great couple of seasons for this pair, who have a trio of Olympic medals.
Yes, they may not have had the great success at the World Championship so far. They'll be looking to do that today, but they definitely have come out when it counts at the Olympics.
Quite a bit slower start than the 2 German sleds.
Yes.
On balance of the first 7 sleds, those are the ones we expect will be in the medal hunt. 6 of those 7 are contending. But we'll see as we move along. Nice exit of curve 9, S4.
That's beautiful. That is just how it's done. These guys are having an incredible season so far with 2 World Cup wins so far this year.
Sigulda and Innsbruck.
Wow.
Yeah, Innsbruck sprint.
And they are the veteran team on the doubles World Cup circuit. They've been around for a long time and are still, oh no, and they've crashed in the final corner of the track, and that will cost them quite a bit of time. Not as much as if they'd done it earlier, but it'll be a fight for them to try and come back and reach the podium with that at the very end of their run.
0.4 of a second back or 0.3 back should keep them in for run number 2, but as you mentioned, Alex, that gets them out of contention. I'm sure they were expecting a podium.
Yes, they were definitely expecting to be competing for a podium. Let's see what happens here. Looks like they just get some direction off the second last corner there. They rode the end of the profile a little too long, and it pushed them too early into that very last corner, which is just too bad. They were having a beautiful run until that point.
Well, it's been a great run for this pair of Austrians over the past couple of years, culminating last week with clinching their first ever World Cup overall title. Stoy and Kohler became the first non-Germans at doubles in 7 years to win the World Cup overall. Now, Alex, they'll be looking to do the same at the World Championships. You have to go back to 2012 and the Linger brothers from Austria.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe it probably was the Lingers that won the last overall title as well.
That's right, yep.
These guys have just stepped into that role of being a dominant Austrian luge team and continued that tradition, and they've had an incredible season so far, and
this time is not working in their favor, Alex.
Not having the time here that you would expect, so I think the warm weather is going to play a big factor here today. Oh, too bad.
4th out of
5/10
4.
behind.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That's about 2/10 behind the Latvians, who crashed at the finish, and I didn't see anything major happen. Did you?
No, they looked like they had a really good run. didn't notice any issues or skidding down the track, and I expect that would just be a sled setup issue and not choosing the right equipment for the really warm weather they're having there in Königssee.
They've been pretty infallible this year, so that is a big surprise and the biggest event. Lorenz has the ability to smile and wave at the camera anyway. Now,
yeah, they'll pick up and hopefully have a second run.
Well, we'll get an indication in a moment. We have another Austrian sled coming up. We'll see how that setup is, but now our second Latvian sled is getting ready. What a great start to the career for Martins Bots and Roberts Pluma, as evidenced by them just going this early at their first World Championships.
Absolutely. To be fifth off in your first World Championship shows that you've had an incredible season. And these two have just burst onto the World Cup scene and become a surprise contender at the World Cup on the senior level.
21 and 20 years old, top, bottom, respectively. They, respectively, they had their first ever podium. That was on their home track, but wavering quite a bit. Not a bad recovery in Bendaway.
That was a great recovery, especially for a young doubles team like that. It's really hard to control a sled when it starts skidding like that. So really great for them to be able to recover. Unfortunately, that will cost them some time, and you can see that in the splits as we get down to the bottom.
They'll be trailing the entire field, it would seem, as the sun is shining down there on those final few curves.
Yes.
And they're nearly a second off the pace, 50.807. It is, wow.
Too bad for that young team.
It's Germany, the two German sleds separated by 0.02 of a second and distanced from everyone else right now in the early going.
Yes, we will have to see if anyone is able to break into that time that the Germans have put down and get into that range and compete with them.
Back in the day, they always, when they seeded hometown athletes went early, once they were done, they turned off the refrigeration. But I won't get into those conspiracy theories. I'm sure we're well beyond those outlaw days in the sport of luge. Now, Ludwig Rieder and Patrick Rastner having a great season, and they had their first ever World Cup victory last week in Innsbruck, but they did not qualify yesterday for the sprint competition thanks to a crash earlier in the day in the preliminary run.
Yeah, so Rieder Rastner will definitely be looking for some redemption now coming into this main doubles race, looking to have a showing similar to what they had last week in Innsbruck.
Top 10 in every race for this duo this season. Most of those top fives, including the lone victory.
Yeah, they've been the top Italian team for a few years now, and they have a very competitive doubles program, so it's great to see them having a very good run here. See how that works out for them at the time at the finish.
So fourth place, time 3900. Not unlike the Austrians, Stroy and Kohler. Everything seemed clean, but not particularly fast.
No, and like I said, that's likely a factor with the weather, but we'll see if anyone but the Germans are able to break into the same kind of time range that they've had, and we'll make for a interesting race as we get into some of the other sleds through the doubles field.
That was the exit of the Kreisel, now the comparison between the lines of the young Latvians and the older Italians.
Yeah, the young Latvians are a little too far on the right when you're watching this. The Italians are driving it kind of ideally where you want to be, but when it comes to doubles through that section, anything that's straight and sliding smoothly is a good line.
Now Yannick Mueller and Armin Frauscher. Both of these former singles competitors. In fact, Frauscher was a top 10 finisher in singles at the Youth Olympic Games. Also may have won a podium, actually, on the World Cup.
He did, actually. I'm just going to note that it looks like there was a bit of miscommunication between those double sliders at the start. You could see the top man reach for another paddle at the end, but kind of broke off and had to settle into the sled as they reached that bend in the start ramp.
And the consequences, they're already down by a quarter of a second at the last split time.
That is going to cost you some time, as like with the doubles here, you have to be very in sync between the partners, and you have to really communicate how and what's going to happen, in particular at the start and then down the track. Oh no, hitting a wall there. That's really unfortunate, as that's an uphill section of the track, and it's going to really cost them lots of time.
6 out of 7. What's incredible, Alex, is that the Latvians, who had the only real crash so far, they're still in third place. Their speed was outstanding, and they could have made a race out of this if they had just stayed off that final wall.
They really could have. They were having a great run, and clearly had a fast sled setup going, and they're going to be really disappointed that they were unable to hold it through that last corner, which, you know, you get some tricky pressure off of in those last two corners sometimes, but really unfortunate to see that the Austrians also struggled with that section.
Doubles World Championship moving along in Berchtesgaden and Königssee with another Latvian, the third Latvian sled among the first 8 today. Oskars Gudramovic, Peteris Kalnins, a pair of 32-year-olds from the city of Riga, capital city of Latvia. A fun place to hang out in a non-pandemic year at the beginning or end of a World Cup weekend.
Starting off pretty well, but a little bit slower at the start than the Germans who are in the lead, so you can see they're already about 2 tenths behind. Oh, not quite making the cut through the bend away there. That long, nearly straight section still requires you to steer through it so that you don't hit the corners, and that's costing them some time down the track.
That is the Echo Wall, or now the Fent Wall, right up against the lake in honor of, as you mentioned, Alex, Josef Fent, the longtime president, as the Latvians cross in 5th place. And I think we've reached that point in the race where if anyone else does crack the top 2, it's going to be a big surprise. It's not out of the question, but it's going to be a surprise.
It's not out of the question. There are definitely a few sleds left who are capable of having runs that could be in that top 3, top 4 time range. We've yet to see some of the Italians come down, and of course the North Americans, who, while they've had tricky starts to the season as they've come late to the World Cup, have that potential.
Yeah, we don't want to sound anticlimactic, but those 2 German sleds, they're just so far ahead of everyone else right now. But what's fun is they're only separated by 0.02 of a second, 2 great rivals, Egert Benneken, Wendel Arlt. And now the Polish team of Wojciech Chmielewski and Jakub Kowalewski.
And these 2 have had a really great couple of years. They're a strong doubles team from a small nation, and have the potential actually to be among those athletes that do break onto the podium. But we'll see how they do here today.
Pretty clean exit, not perfect, but not bad out of S4.
No, it's not perfect, but they look pretty relaxed on the sled, and they're having a pretty good run, and you know, they've made it through the trickier sections of the track without any major issues. We'll just see how they do through the Fent corner and up through these last 2 uphill finish corners.
12th place finishers.
Through there, and
yeah, not bad. 6th place, 50.259, I believe I saw that as. So it puts them within a half second.
Yeah, a respectable time for the Polish. They'll be obviously happy with that. They were clean down the track and have to go up and put together a second run here.
Actually, that puts them ahead of Stoy Kolar, the world Cup champions. So that's an accomplishment. And the race could be for third place a little later today, where they're all bunched together right now.
It could be. You know, it's tricky. We know that the German doubles are going to be very strong and dominant, but it is still, there are some sections on this track that can trip up even the really solid Germans. So we'll see how things go, and it's a 2-run race, so you have to have 2 really good runs to do well.
This duo had the race of their lives last year at the World Championships, a 4th place finish. So just off of the podium, but their best ever result on the international stage. Kashkin and Korshunov representing the Russian Luge Federation. No Russian name, no Russian uniforms, no Russian flag. Just the Luge Federation being represented at these World Championships, as will be the case at the Olympics.
Yeah, these are sanctions that are still playing out as a result of the alleged doping scandal that happened in Sochi and subsequent investigations into that.
Through the Kreisel, that split time is...
Oh no! Oh, and they've crashed.
And they're not going to carry to the finish, are they?
No, they won't. They will stop here. Oh, they're back on, but it'll be pretty hard for them to, even if they do finish here, make it
to the top 18.
Well, they won't make the top 18.
Right. Yeah.
They might putter across the finish line here.
I think they're going to get a finish.
Oh,
no.
No finish time.
And there is a mark well above this where after you cannot paddle or you're disqualified. They're just trying to paddle to, it's kind of like the Cool Running scene, right? Where they carried that sled around the finish.
I don't know that they will even have a time that counts there. We'll see what happened here in the chicanes. The sled broke away and started skidding on them as they came through, and they just, the top or higher center of gravity on a double sled pulled them over as they had bad direction onto that second chicane there. And that's too bad for this young Russian doubles team to crash in World Championships. You can see they're off the track and they're okay, but pride will be hurt a little bit.
Unfortunate, their weekend is done, possibly their season done. We're going to find that out as we move along. The World Cup finale is next week in San Moritz. We don't anticipate every nation will show up for the finale. Now from Italy, Rieder and Keinswaldner, who's best for a weekend ever as still a young doubles team.
Oh, no.
Ooh, they hit right there at the start. Was last year at the World Championships. They finished 5th. They also had a second podium in the sprint competition that weekend.
Yeah, they had a couple of really good results last year, and unfortunately they tapped the wall there at the start. They weren't able to settle in time to navigate the bend in the track there. Having a clean run so far after that. Oh, and they have a little loop through Kreisel there. Well handled on the exit of Kreisel. That could have been really similar to what the Russians did, but they were able to control the sled through the chicanes.
Down to the finish now, they are within a half second. So again, there are 2 races going on at once right now. There are the 2 Germans who are 3,300 ahead of everyone else. They're separated only by 2,000 to the second. Then you have the rest of the field, all of whom, or most of whom at least at this point, have a chance for 3rd place in run number 2.
It is a very tight race from 3rd to 7th at this point. And yeah, it's just those 2 German sleds that came down first. You can tell that they've had a ton of training on this track, and it's one of their home tracks, and sometimes that makes a difference.
3rd and final Italian team now, Nagla and Malaya, who bounced their veteran teammates Oberstolz and Gruber off of the Olympic team 3 years ago. And here at the World Championships, Alex, there's, especially for these deep nations, there's a lot of posturing going on today because really in doubles, only 2 sleds qualify at the Olympic Games. A lot of time between now and then, but here's where they can make their first big statement.
Yeah, these two broke onto the World Cup as young doubles team going into the 2018 Olympics, and had some great performances. The Italians chose to go with young potential, and they've been a solid team since then. So, and yeah, going into 2022 Olympics, that's only a year away now, and these World Championships will play a factor into some teams, the start of some teams' selection.
We'll talk much more about Olympics selection as we move along. That's Armin Zugler, the sport director for the Italian program. Not a bad run this late in the field. Nagla Malaya in 5th place right now. They are about a 1/10 of a second out of 3rd.
And they're just behind their teammates, Rita Rastner. So it's going to be a tight race for the second run among the Italian doubles teams.
Well, we need to be stood corrected here, Alex, because when the Latvians, Cheeks and Cheeks, crashed at the finish, we said, well, they'll make it into the second run, but they won't challenge for the podium. But look at that. They're still in 3rd place.
Yeah, that's a testament to how good their run was up till that point. And, it is just the final corner, but I would be willing to bet that had they not crashed, they would have been up in that range right with the German doubles teams.
10 have gone, 16 remain, and once again, only the top 18 after this first heat will advance into a second run. Now the second of 3 Russian sleds getting ready, youngsters, Bushniev and Kiseyev, who are in just their 4th race together at this level.
Yeah, they joined the World Cup circuits 2 races ago in Oberhof, I believe after Yushikov, who was one of the veteran Russian double sliders, chose to call it a career.
That was a bit of a surprise announcement.
Yeah, very surprising. So, be excited to see here what this young doubles team can do and how they step into that vacated role. Having a really smooth run down there through the bend away.
Their veteran teammate and World Championship medal winners, Denisov and Antonov, are coming up in a moment, and now the final few curves where the course turns uphill.
Yeah, the big trick is that you need to just carry as much speed as possible through those corners, and unfortunately that is not a great time for that young doubles team.
12th out of 12, actually out of 13, as one other Russian sled did not finish their run.
Yeah, so it has not shaping up to be a great race for the Russian doubles teams. We'll see how Denisov and Antonov, who are upcoming, will do.
Well, Germany sits 1-2 in the standings ahead of the Latvians and the Italians, but this will be a little interesting to watch now. The third of 3 German sleds. Yesterday in the sprint, Germany swept not only the podium, but the top 4 positions. We don't expect that to happen in today's doubles competition. This is a young team, Orla Munder and Gubitz, but they are 3-time junior world champions.
Yeah, this is a really young doubles team, and they had good run yesterday in the sprint race, and so they'll be looking to have a similar performance. Quite a bit back there at the start, nearly 3/10 already.
Pair of 21-year-olds. They're from the Oberhof region. As you know, famously, we say all of the time, Germany is not one nation and one national team as much as it is several regions within the country.
Yeah, with 4 tracks, Germany has quite a bit of rivalry between their local clubs and between the different areas. So, I mean, it makes for very dominant sliders. They're quite a ways back, Olemander here, and I think they will be looking to improve on that in the second run.
Makes you wonder whether Norbert Locke, whom we just saw shrugging his shoulders, is standing by his decision to pick this team over Goyak and Gam. I believe Goyak and Gam sort of earned their way out of the World Championships this year. Not bad with the lines, right?
No, they looked pretty good. Clean lines down the track, and you know, they're a young doubles team, so it'll take some experience for them to find their way and make their way to being highly competitive on the World Cup.
Two nations that have a great history of Olympic and World Championship medals do not have current depth in their programs, and those are the two North American nations, USA and Canada, both entering just one sled into competition all season long. Here's the USA, Chris Masder and Jason Turdeman.
A good start for Masder Turdeman. They're a little bit slower at the start, but they're great at gaining time down the track. We'll see if they're able to do that today with the current track conditions.
Tough luck day yesterday for the top man, Masder, the Olympic silver medalist, finished 16th in qualifying in both men's singles and doubles when only the top 15 make it into the main field.
Yeah, that would have been a heartbreaker for Masder, so I'm sure he's looking to find some redemption here today. Losing a little bit more time as we come down the track. Lines look pretty good. No big errors. Looks like you want to tap his foot down there, but he held it together.
12th place out of 14 finishers so far. So the struggles continue for the USA in the men's disciplines, where they're hard-pressed to catch top 10 results at any point this year. They did, of course, join the tour second half of the season.
Yeah, the North Americans didn't come over to Europe until after Christmas to join the World Cup. So, you know, that's challenging in and of itself as you're playing catch up with people that have been racing for 2 months prior.
Final of the Russians and the most decorated among the trio, Denisov and Antonov, both of them 29 years old. Last year at the World Championships on their home track, they finished second between the two German sleds currently leading. Silver medal in that race, gold in the sprint competition.
A really aggressive start there, but you could see that the sled bounced around a little bit. I don't expect them to have a great split here. Yeah, you can see they're a little bit behind.
Well, they really haven't done much since those World Championship podiums. Their best result since last year's Worlds was a 5th this season on the World Cup. So Russia probably needing to regroup a little bit, at least in doubles, and we've already seen that with the young teams.
Yeah, a little wavy here in the Kreisel, and that's going to make that a little bit challenging. They handle it really well through the chicanes. Into the uphill section here, they'll have to carry quite a bit of speed, and I think we'll see them back quite a ways.
50.797 is their first run time. And now the intrigue here is no longer the top of the leaderboard, because I believe the Germans are so far ahead of everyone, Alex, that even as the track slows down in run number 2, that gap is big. But we will see who can qualify at least for the second run. That's where the contest begins now.
Yeah, it's we're getting into some of the lower ranked teams among the seeding from World Cup, so we'll be looking to see who can break into that top 18.
Gotta believe that the Koreans and the Canadians will be there at the end of the run, but stranger things have happened. The next few will be 2 to watch, Slovakia and then the final Austrian sled. For Slovakia alone, Baverchak and Schmidt, making it into run number 2 would be something special.
Yeah, and I mean, they look like they're having a great start here, and we'll see how their run goes. Good time through the second split.
18 being the magic number to get into run number 2. That's exactly where they sit this year in the World Cup standings, in 18th place.
And they're a solid young doubles team, so I'd expect to see them. See, they've lost quite a bit of time through the Kreisel there. Through the fence corner and into the uphill section.
So now they cross in 16th place, and they'll have to sit and wait. That's Katerina Simanikova, their Slovakian teammate. We will see her tomorrow in the women's competition. Later today, it's men's singles. We're just getting heated up here on this World Championship weekend, but unfortunately, I believe the track is heating up a little bit as well.
Yeah, you can see in the bottom section that they've kept a lot of the shades closed, and that's to keep some of the sun off the track, but there are quite a few open sections on this Königssee track, so it'll be challenging for the track crew to maintain ice conditions.
The Austrian program so deep in all 3 disciplines now. Podiums across the board, as they've won medals this year in doubles, in women's singles, in men's singles. Here's the final doubles team of the day. The 2019 junior world champion gold relay members, Gott and Schoff.
This is the young doubles team for the Austrians. It's their first season on the Senior World Cup circuit. So they'll be looking to have a solid performance here.
Do you remember your first Worlds?
Yeah, I was in Salt Lake City and I crashed in the start corner.
Okay, that was a quick end to your World Championship weekend, right?
Yeah, well, I got back on and finished, so I got to race out the day, but that was the end of any competitive hopes.
Which, unfortunately, we've sort of reached the end of for this run number 1. Again, Koreans, Canadians still coming up. They certainly are top 10 candidates. I don't know if the track is slowing down, but Ken, who is up early as always today in North Carolina watching, writes in and says he can't help but notice that all of the shades went down immediately after Stoyan Kohler's run. Nice to have a fellow conspiracy theorist watching today.
Yeah, and they don't have shades throughout the track here because the track is has been around for so long. It's the original Kunstbahn track, and the newer sections at the bottom that they recently added to the track are where they have those shade systems. So we'll see if it helps maintain the track or if it's just too warm for them to.
Ihor Shtakov, Andrei Lisetsky, the second of the Ukraine teams on board today. If you are up early watching, thanks so much. We are approaching 100 different nations who have watched live luge this year. And if you have questions, comments, criticisms, insights, or suggestions, or even more, you can find us on Twitter @LugeAnnouncer, or you can email us luge.announcer@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Stump Alex with a luge question.
Oh, I'm sure there's many questions I don't know the answer to.
I'll try to help out if I can. The Ukrainians to the finish with a time of 51.654. That's on the bubble right now, 18th. The bad news for them is that's out of 18 out of 18, or actually 19 when you count the crash. So we still have 7 more to come, looking to knock them out of run number 2.
Yeah, and they had a good run. You can see their line here through the chicanes coming out of Kreisel, and Looks like they may have kicked up a bit of snow there, so maybe some ice cutting or skidding. Looking pretty relaxed on the sled, so, you know, it's
Okay, Alex Brittany Arndt is up watching, presumably from her hotel room in Berchtesgaden today. She got involved in the sport about the time you were first winning world championship podiums. And her question is, how much do you think the ice is slowing down? Considering the Germans went first, they seem to have had a nice advantage. Can you guess from 5,000 miles away?
I would have a hard time guessing from sitting at home in Calgary to Königssee. Having raced in those warm, humid European conditions over many years, you know, I know that track crew is trying to maintain the track as well as they can, but you can see coming out of S4 there that you're starting to really see the lines of each individual sled, and that's a pretty good indication that they're starting to see some frost build up. You know, you're probably seeing a couple of tenths at least, if not into that, I don't want to say half second. I think, you know, the Germans played off their advantage of going first, as well as having some incredible sled technology. And Park Cho come down, and they're in 17th place, so they are also kind of sitting on that bubble, but they're
right now
ahead of their bib number, which is good to see.
Always good to see, yes. So the Koreans, the top 10 finishers at the Olympic Games. And as we get ready for the Canadians, Brittany, we'll throw that question right back at you. You've been training all week on the track here in Königssee. How, in your mind, has the ice held up? We'd love to know. So the Koreans are through, but let's sit back here because your longtime teammates are getting ready at the top. Tristan and Justin, fourth place finishers in Olympic doubles, second place silver medal winners in the Olympic relay. Alex, what is their strength in this sport other than experience?
They're really strong at the start, so I would expect to see them have a good start and be competitive at that. And then just, you know, experience should have them having a fairly strong, consistent lines down the track. We'll see how they do here.
And a quick shout out to Sam Edney. If you're up early watching today in Canada, Sam, he completed the quartet of Olympic silver medal winners as part of that relay team. Tristan and Justin, a good line into Kreisel.
Yeah, they look really good there through Bendaway. Oh, pretty big loop here through the Kreisel. They manage it reasonably well through the chicanes. That loop will cost them some time, though, so we'll see how they hold it through the end. Last two corners going uphill here.
12th place, 50.553. As we anticipated, the Canadians are safely into run number 2.
Yeah, they come down just ahead of the Americans, so you know, there's a long-standing rivalry between the American and Canadian double sled. This big loop here in Kreisel is definitely part of, costs them some time and makes the exit of Kreisel really tricky. So hopefully they can clean that up on the second run and improve on their current position.
Park and Cho sitting on the bubble, 18th place for Korea. We have 5 teams remaining. The Romanians now, the first of 2 from Romania, Jutland and Zirban. If nothing else, these 2 Romanian teams will be posturing for the opportunity to appear tomorrow in the team relay.
Yeah, for the nations that have multiple sleds in the race, there is a bit of a race within that, as most nations will choose the top finishing or the sled with the fastest single run time to race in the team relay. Having a pretty good run here, a nice clean line down Bendaway and navigating it well.
Ooh.
Oh, tapping the wall there. Oh no!
Major trouble. They're off the sled. Not sure if they can carry the speed. They need to get back on that sled or at least maintain contact. It's not going to happen. So they're the second team to be disqualified from this competition. And the hits just keep on coming.
They're going to get a DNF here, and really unfortunate through the chicanes. They just had that loop where the sled is wavering up and down to the Kreisel. Here you can see it. They get a little high, drop low, and I mentioned that Tristan and Justin did this, but they also were able to manage it on the end where this team comes off and taps that wall on the right side, and they aren't able to recover from that, and it ends up them crashing.
They become
really unfortunate.
They become officially the second team to not get a finish time. Kashkin and Korshunov, again, officially were disqualified. This team gets a DNF. Kashkin and Korshunov get a DQ because they paddled. So those two are out. And an update, the final team slated to start, number 26 from Poland, Karas and Karas, they will not be starting. I know that that's definite. I don't know why yet. I'll try to find that out for our Polish viewers. But we do continue now with the team from Moldova, Shishenu and Opria.
This is another young doubles team. They have just come onto the circuit in the last year.
It's great to see a new country involved.
Yeah, we used to have a male athlete from Moldova, but this is the first doubles team that I know of that has come out of that country. So really good to see the participation in the sport expanding to other countries. Really nice line there through the Kreisel. You can see that without the loop, they're able to navigate through the chicanes and carry on. Oh, little problems there in the Say-Fent combination.
Now to the finish. They'll be well off the mark, but they will cleanly cross that finish line in 21st place. That does not earn them a second run, so their weekend is done, as Moldova will not have an entry in the relay as far as I know. It's Park and Cho of Korea sitting in 18th place still, and really only the next team of the remaining sleds will have any chance. Hoy and Lekevich from Ukraine up next. They had a 20th place finish at the World Cup here in early January, Three Kings holiday weekend. And they've had a top 18, won 18th place in Oberhof. So the last chance, really, I mean, we've got one more sled to come who we figure will not contend for the top 18. Pretty smooth paddles there. Deliberate settle.
They're a little on the right side of that start ramp, and that makes it really tricky to navigate that first cut as the bobsleigh and women's starts come together. Or women's and double starts. Good lines through the S corners. They have a really nice exit of S4, which can be one of the tricky spots on this track. Nice exit of oh no, they weren't able to navigate through the chicanes. Another crash, and they're back on the sled.
Nice recovery. I've always said, Alex said, as much as
and the bottom man's foot is come off the sled. They're going to have a really tough time getting back online here.
They may do it. Let's see.
They can. And they have to get to the finish line in sliding position.
Without paddling. And they don't.
The Russians were just,
unfortunate.
So
This field is paring itself down to the final 18.
You can see how disappointed that top man is as he hits the ice in frustration.
Well, what happened here?
Looks like they drove into a bit of a skid as they cut that first chicane. You have to steer through this section, so it's tricky to navigate if you're not doing it kind of have to do it pretty gently to not have the sled break away on you. And it can be hard if you haven't had clean runs through there to drive it with confidence.
I've often said, Alex, that as impressed as I am watching all of you lugers handle the high speed, I'm equally as impressed after a crash on how the athletes use their muscles and their agility to get back onto a sled. It's just incredible.
Yeah, no, getting back on a sled after a crash is hard. It was definitely not something that I was very good at. I often ended up separated from my sleds, so that made it tough to finish a run after a crash. But here we have the second of the Romanian teams.
And the final sled of run number 1.
No.
And they have a big hit off of curve 9.
Big problems in S3, S4 that led to that hit out of S4. And with the profiled transitions between the flat and the walls, you can see that they nearly crashed. Still, oh no, they have crashed. That is too bad for this young Romanian team, and I don't believe they will.
No, they will not
get
carry
back
the speed.
on and carry enough speed to finish the run.
No chance. So frustration for several of these last few teams, Alex. You know, the good news is that they're all okay. No injuries that we have seen. But
no, it looks like they've all, and you can see they just had too much height at the end of S3 there, and that led them to cross too hard to S4 and have too much height, fall off, or come out early and hit the wall on the inside.
So both of the Romanian teams had DNFs. Both had crashes and failed to carry across the finish line. I still believe the way that the FIL rules work, that one of those teams can represent their country tomorrow in the relay. But we'll get the word on that.
If they were, I believe if they were qualified to race in their individual race, they will be able to field one of their doubles teams in the team relay.
Well, we're going to be flashing some standings up in a moment. Run number 1 of the World Championship doubles competition is in the books. The Germans so far ahead of everyone else right now. That's the good news. The bad news is they'll be going late. The last 2 sleds to go, but again, more good news. They're so far ahead of everyone else. The Latvians actually crashed, but despite that, they're in 3rd place in a pretty spirited battle among several sleds for what we believe will be the fight for the final podium position. Is that how you see it, Alex?
Yeah, and you know, with the tricky conditions, we could see some of the earlier starters in the second run have a bit of an advantage and some movement within the rankings. So we'll see how everything plays out in the second round.
Tucked away in the southwest portion of Germany, not too far from Austria. This is Bavaria, Königssee 30.1.2021 in the German Alps, a beautiful setting, and the backdrop for today's doubles luge world championship competition. Hi again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer. 41 degrees Fahrenheit with 81% humidity, though no rain. The track definitely slowed down during run number 1 as we take a closer look at the specs on this 1,239 meter track. Later today, it's the men's competition, the only track in the world where the men lugers start at an area above the bobsled and skeleton start. That'll be fun to watch, but we concentrate now on run number 2 of doubles. I'll be joined in a moment by Alex Goff, but first, counting them down 3-2-1 after the first heat, the Latvian 3-time Olympic medalist, Sheiks and Sheiks, they had a huge crash down at the bottom, but still found themselves in the top 3. But everyone is trailing, and by a pretty wide margin, the 2 German doubles teams. That's Wendel and Alt from here in Bavaria. Then from Oberhof, Egert and Beneken. They are separated by just a few thousandths of a second. It should be a fun rivalry. Counting them down, they'll be the last 2 sleds to go in run number 2. And each of those 2 German teams, Wendel, Art, and Egert Beneken, come into these worlds with a world championship history of 3 golds and 3 silvers. So all sorts of history at stake. And right now, to give us a little more perspective, a woman that's won 6 world championship medals of her own from Team Canada, Alex Goff. And Alex, the story really was the Germans and everyone else in run number 1, wasn't it?
It really was. You know, the Germans went off first and had great runs, and they're very strong on one of their home tracks. The weather also plays a factor with the warm conditions, and it's challenging for track crews to maintain ice through those kinds of conditions over a long run between preparations. So that does mean that we could see some movement within the rankings here when sliders that went later in the order, such as Park Cho that we have coming up first, get a chance to go right at the beginning of the run and right after our track prep.
Only 18 qualified for run number 2 here, and so the Koreans qualified on the number. Last year they finished 14th at the World Championship. That was in Sochi. You hear the bell ringing. Now they have 45 seconds in which to start that sled, pull off of the handles. Singles athletes get 30 seconds. So kick back, get ready as we count them down from 18 to 1. Early on here, if you've got questions or comments, share your thoughts with us on Twitter at Luge Announcer. And you can also email us, luge.announcer@gmail.com. Welcome to our live streaming coverage of the World Championships.
Nice start there for Park Cho. Really good synchronized paddles. Starts are tricky for doubles. You'll see, if you're looking, straps that attach to the top man's wrists. Those are for the bottom man to pull on, and then they have to synchronize their paddles as they go down the start ramp. Here in Königssee, it's a long, flat start ramp, so you'll see them do upwards of 7 to 10 paddles.
2 runs, it's combined time, so that clock running in the bottom part of your screen is added on from their first heat time of 51.382. Very different ice. We'll see how this time compares to that.
Really nice clean run. See how they can do with this finish.
They're about 700ths faster than their first run time. We expect to see the Koreans tomorrow in the relay competition. Last year they finished 8th at the World Championship in team relay.
So we didn't see as much of an improvement in time from their run where they started 20th to the run now where they've started right after the prep. So maybe the track does hold up better, but I would expect that we will see some of these athletes have better times.
From Slovakia, Tomáš Vaverček and Maciej Šmiš, both 21 years old. 6th place finishers at the Youth Olympic Games. And here are those paddles and the synchronization in which you spoke, Alex, and that's probably the main reason why it's so important for a doubles team to stay together rather than shuffle the lineup between athletes.
Yeah, for the most part, doubles teams get together while they're young in their teen years and race junior together, and then we'll move up through the ranks of junior and senior and stay together throughout their careers. There are a few notable exceptions to that, one of those being the American team. Jason Turdeman has slid with a number of different top men and has been successful with a couple of different partners. So it's possible, it's just not common.
In the green, that's good if you're new to the sport. Red, bad, blue, undecided. And they are well into the green by a full second ahead of the Koreans.
Really good second run for the young Slovakian team. You can see that they're very happy. Great for them to have a couple of good runs in the World Championships, and we'll see them tomorrow in the team.
So just warming up here, getting started with the action, and young Russian team getting ready to go, but the leading Germans are already into their warm-up routine. Here's Bushniev and Kilseyev. Now, Alex, here's a question I ask all of my co-athlete commentators. World Championships and World Cup 2 runs, Olympics 4 runs. Now, in the other sliding sports, they also do the 4-run races at the World Championships. What's your opinion, your preference?
I just kind of went with the flow, to be perfectly honest. Even in the Olympics, you kind of treat it like 2 races because it's held over 2 days. But you get really used to the 2-run race format. So I like that the World Championships follow that, and then the Olympics get to be their own beast, which they are. So
I'll play the advocate and ask you the question. In that case, what makes the World Championship any different than a World Cup race, other than the fact that it's called the World Championship?
Mostly the fact that it's called World Championships.
Okay.
We place more prestige on World Championships, and for most of us, our federations and funding programs look at World Championships before they look at individual World Cups. So it definitely evokes a bit more of a higher prestige level in terms of what the result means.
And it is slightly different. I mean, there are different qualifying standards to get there, and then a different format for the race, as we saw earlier, where the top seeds go early in run number 1. So there are subtle differences. I'm not sure there are enough major differences. Now Bots and Pluma, the young Latvian team, still learning some lessons. They earned a very quick podium early in their career a few weeks ago, but they're back here in 16th place, or 15th after run number 1. Still not bad.
No, that's very respectable for a young team to come out in their first year as senior, particularly in doubles, which is really challenging to break into the senior level and have a good first run and then be in the second run where you have to qualify by rank is definitely oh no, getting a little bump there and chicanes,
yeah,
but they've handled it well.
They had a quick recovery. It really looked like they were on the edge. Now, if they have a good advantage down here, they could blow right by the Russians and Americans to follow. 1200's up, so they have the lead. And the Russian team coming up next only has 100th of a second on them. And then the Americans have a couple of more hundreds, 300ths ahead. So, I don't know, they could move up still.
Yeah, they could. We're getting into a part of groupings of athletes where the time between sleds after the first run is very close. So I think, we could see some movement and we could see some people hold on, but it will all depend on the sliders.
Alexander Denisov, Vladislav Antonov, 2-time world champion medalists, also Olympic silver medalists from 2014 in the team relay. And question comes in from our loyal viewers known as Luge Moms, the $1 million question everyone asks you, Alex. Any updates on the status of the Calgary track?
Unfortunately, no. The Calgary track is closed at this point until hopefully some funding comes through from our government levels to do some much needed renovations to a track that's just in need of new refrigeration and some renovations to keep it going. But we'll see if it comes through, and it'd be pretty sad if it didn't.
Very sad. We all miss Calgary so much. I say that on a personal level as well as a luge competitive level.
And we definitely miss having the World Cup for the sliding sports come to Calgary.
Close, but not close enough. And as I predicted could happen, the Latvians have knocked off the Russians. And still ahead, the Americans are lurking. Not a good day at all for Russia. They will have no sled in the top 10 likely. They had one of their teams disqualified earlier today after a crash.
Yeah, it's a tough day for the Russians. And, they're particularly after last year where they were able to have a podium finish in the sprint. And I believe in the main race as well. Denisov there finished second. So
here is USA Chris Masder, 32 years old, now lives in Salt Lake City. Jason Turdeman, Pennsylvania. The state of Pennsylvania is his hometown. Lake Placid is where he lives now. He's also 32 years old. 13th place after run number 1. Some pretty smooth paddles there, but only the 5th fastest start time at the moment.
Yeah, a little bit slower start time there for Master Tournament, and I know both of them have struggled with some shoulder injuries, so they could still be building back from that as well.
50.779 was their first run time. They're already 1700ths behind the Latvians, hoping for a top 12 finish here. 2 clean, consistent runs was what Jason Tournament told me his goal was for this week.
A little offline there through the chicanes, and Mazur is able to hold on and keep the sled running straight, but that is going to cost them some time here.
They fall back 4 positions, a disappointing opening race for the USA on this World Championship weekend. Mazur's not done for the day. He will race later today in singles. He said he loves the challenge of taking part in these 2 disciplines with 2, as he calls them, very different physical skill sets.
Yeah, it's Mazur has, I don't know how he does it, to race 2 races a day every weekend, and then add in team relay and sprint as well when you've got those as well in the World Cup weekends. I find it hard to race, or found it hard to race my individual race in either the team relay or sprint, so all the best to him in the men's race.
The Latvians continue to hang on to the lead. We thought they might move up a couple of spots, and they did. It's going to be tougher here with the Canadians, who hold a quarter of a second advantage. Tristan Walker and Justin Smith, both from Calgary.
Oh, yeah, that's not great. They had big problems at the start there. Tapped a wall and then just weren't able to recover, and had some issues coming into that start corner.
Boy, Alex, you wouldn't expect that from a team who has about as many runs on this Königssee track as any non-German in today's race.
Yeah, the Canadians have a lot of experience on the Königssee track, and it's really unfortunate to see that. And bigger problems here, and we've got a crash here in Kelstein. Really unfortunate for the Canadians.
Very unfortunate, Alex, especially when you consider that, of course, this year's World Championship was not originally scheduled for Königssee. It was slated to be held on their home track in Whistler. Wow, just too bad.
Yeah, they're getting up, so looks like they're both going to be okay. That is a rough crash to watch. We saw a few sleds do that in the first run, where they started to tap some walls and crash from the chicanes into Kelstein, and
unfortunately,
really unfortunate for these
2 great Canadian doubles team, the greatest doubles team ever from your nation, with 8 career World Cup podiums, an Olympic medal in relay, but unfortunately still shut out at the World Championships.
Yeah.
There'll be a little bit of a track hold, if nothing else. We certainly think that Tristan and Justin are okay, but they want to make sure the track is okay too, and that the sliding is fair for the next athletes. And it's an opportunity to talk about what we're looking at there. No spectators in Königssee. That's a very strange sight.
It is very strange to have a Königssee race where there's lots of fans in the area that typically come out and have big crowds standing at the finish line, and lots of music and cheering, and very different this year.
Yannick Mueller, top man, 21 years old. He's from Bludenz, Austria, where these athletes will be driving right by there on their way to San Moritz in a couple of days. And Armin Frauscher, the 26-year-old bottom man from Lans, which is, and I mean this literally, a stone's throw from the Eagles track. Lans, just down the hill, a couple of 100 meters.
Looking good so far through the S corners. Let's see how their exit of S4. Really nice, beautiful exit. Really close to the Latvian team, though, only 100th ahead at this point.
And they came in nearly 0.3 of a second up. Let's check out this next split. Now 7 thousandths. The Latvians put it together.
Little problems there to the chicanes, but they're able to hold on and carry on down the track. Little tap as well there. So not the cleanest run for this doubles team. We'll see how that...
Well, they must have done something in between runs, Alex, because the Austrian sleds were not fast in run number 1. Stoy Kohler, I mean, they're coming up in a moment here, and they're hard-pressed to be in the top 8 today.
Yeah, so not the cleanest bottom of the track here, but Miller is able to manage the mistakes and not let them affect his lines, and stayed relaxed on the sled, so was able to come down and hold his position. And I would expect that the Austrians also made some adjustments based on the results from the first run.
Well, the 2 leading German teams will be the last 2 to go, but now we have a young team whom Coach Norbert Locke says will be at the top of the field in the future. Orla Munder and Gubitz, 53.432. And Norbert knows he tends to take one young team and travel around the world with that team along with his great podium finishers every year to give them experience.
And that's how you build the next generation. You gotta bring them along while they're young and gain experience in this sport. The more experience you have, the better you get, and the more you know the tracks. So that's high praise from Norbert for these young German doubles.
He had about 800th of a second lead over the Austrians after run number 1. See if they open that up even more. Their first heat time was a 50.465, now a 50.657. So they're slower than run number 1, but well enough of an advantage to stay out in front. With the next Austrians, the World Cup champions, coming up next.
Yeah, really good run from these young doubles, and great performance from them for their first World Championships. Big smile from the top man there. He's happy with his runs, and
their first World Championship
no reason not to be
in the books. And this was the biggest head scratcher, bar none, in run number 1. Stoy and Kohler, top 7 every week this year. In fact, mostly podiums, all but 2 races. They find themselves back in 9th place at the moment for run number 2, maybe with a chance to push it up to the top 6, but podium very far-reaching.
We will see how that plays out for them here. I'm sure they're looking to build on what happened in the first run and move up a few positions, and they're having a great run. Almost 3/10 ahead at this stage.
Well, if they can open that up to like 4/10, then maybe they can push it up and challenge at the top 5, top 4. It's holding it a quarter of a second.
Into this bottom section in the newly named Fent corner, and up now going uphill into the two finish corners. So
Thomas Stoy, Lorenz Kohler into the lead, 50.432. So that's a decent time. That puts them well out in front of everyone. If we look at the next 3, they have less than 100th on them. Actually, the next 4 or 5 sleds. They could move up a few spots, but I don't know about podium.
Yeah, I don't know if that's in reach at this point. It will definitely depend on what the next sleds are able to do. But an improvement on their first run for Stoy and Kohler.
And congratulations to the World Cup champions, 4 race victories this year. And now Wojciech Chmielewski, Jakub Kowalewski, just under a year ago, in mid-February of last year in Winterberg, Germany, they earned their first ever doubles podium. They backed that up earlier this season with a bronze medal podium spot with Poland's team relay in Oberhof. Not a bad start.
Good start from them, and yeah, this is a team that has shown some flashes of brilliance, and can expect for them to be competitive if they are able to have a clean run down the track here.
Well, a little tap in that bend away before Kreisel. Now 270 degrees around.
And they've recovered from that little bit of a mistake down the bendaway and are clean here through the chicanes. That little tap and mistake there might catch up with them here in the bottom section here.
It does. They're in the red. Can they hold on to a top 2 here? They do, so it will be a top 10 finish. No worse than 9th for Poland. So not a bad World Championship showing. They finished 13th last year.
You can see they're happy with that result. It's a great showing for the Polish doubles team.
And actually, Kreisel's it's 360 degrees on this track, isn't it? Not 270?
It is. It is the only track with a full 360-degree Kreisel.
That was the exit of S4, and then their little tap here before Kreisel. Or it looked like a tap. It may have just been a correction.
Yeah, didn't quite make it through, and then they tapped a bit before Jenner, which is the corner just before Kreisel, which caused them to have a late entrance to Jenner, and they were able to recover between Jenner and Kreisel.
From Italy, that's the face of Emanuel Rieder, a former singles competitor, came pretty close to making the Olympic team in singles in 2018, did not, and then hooked in with Simone Keinswaldner to form a pretty respectable doubles team, including second place last year at the World Championship Sprint doubles competition.
Good start for this doubles team from Italy. It's challenging. Like we said, most doubles teams get together when they're young athletes on the junior circuit. So these two athletes have formed a doubles team once they'd become senior athletes, and so they're able to do so and be competitive, which is really impressive.
They're still in the green, chasing down the World Cup champions from Austria, just 15 thousandths of a second separating these two.
And Stoyenkoiler gained some time here in the bottom, so we'll see if they're able to hold on through these last couple of corners.
It could turn red, we'll see. It does not, so a great run for the Italians. Rieder and Keinswaldner, they guarantee a top 7. They knock the World Cup champs off of the top step of the leader box. Bruce Walker writes in from Calgary looking for an update on Walker Smith. Thank you, Bruce. We'll get right on that and hopefully get a report in from Königssee. We saw, was it Tristan kind of squatted down when they got out of the track, right?
Yeah, he looked like he was a little shaken up by that crash, so really hoping that he's okay, and we'll hopefully get a report on that shortly.
Counting them down now from 6-1 with the Germans last to go. But as Alex and I mentioned several times, the fight for third place, especially the final podium position, is very much at large here. And advantage at the moment, Italy. But here comes the first of two remaining Latvian pairs. Oskars Gudramovic, Peteris Kalnins. 3-time Olympians, World Championships last year. They ended up in 7th, so they're sitting right about that same spot right now in 6th.
And they're already behind the Italians. The Italians had a really good start and pulled ahead a little bit. And out of S4, they are pulling back into the lead, gaining some time down the track.
7 thousandths of a second was the advantage, but as you see, it's gone from green to red. It could come back to green, but we haven't seen a lot of back and forth on this track this weekend.
No, this is one of the first sleds we've seen so far that's had some back and forth, and they're coming now into a uphill section, like I said, so unlikely that they will pull ahead through these corners.
They fall back 3 positions behind Italy, Austria, and Poland. So it's Rieder Keinswaldner leading the way for Italy with the top 5 still to come here. 2 more Italian teams waiting on deck.
It looks like a pretty clean run from the Latvian team here, and you could see the top man's disappointment as he saw his ranking on the board as he came up the finish outrun. There it is. You would have felt like he should have been faster given the run they had, but unfortunately, it's not how it played out for them.
Well, Germany may win the top 2 spots today. Italy could conceivably be showing the most depth, as there are 3 with a chance to finish in the top 6 here. Now we have Yvonne Nagler and Fabian Malaya, 7th place finishers at the Olympic Games. And we saw the shades coming down here in Königssee. Never good for the TV cameras, Alex, but probably an important thing for the athletes.
Definitely an important thing for the athletes. Unfortunately, not great for TV, where we can't see what's happening behind those shades. But when the sun comes out like that, it's important to cover the track as much as they can and balance the need to have the TV feed and the need to maintain the track conditions for the race.
Nagler and Malaya have shown some spots of brilliance, although not too many podium appearances for them now in their 4th year on the World Cup. As they come through the lower part of this track, pretty clean run.
Yeah, having a really nice Kreisel and into the chicanes here. Still holding ahead of their teammates.
This will be tight. They've been in the green, but the times are tight. Reeder Keinswaldner with the lead down at the bottom. Nagler and Malaya cross just behind them. So it's Italy.
Just 100th behind.
Exactly. Italy 1-2 in the standings. Another Italian team still coming up next. But they could make up half of the top 6. So not a bad day, even if no podiums for Italy.
And you can see how excited that team is for the result that they've had here. And amazing to see the depth of the Italian doubles program at this point.
Well, while they've been steady this year, they haven't been sensational, and this top 6 will amount to their best finish of the year.
And congratulations to them. What a time to have your best race of the year.
Now, speaking of having good years, we have the final Italian team coming up now. Ludwig Reeder, Patrick Rassner. They're veterans, but they're saving the best for late in their career. Top 10 in every race, 2 podiums, 1 victory, their first as a team.
Yeah, and that victory just came in the last week in Eagles. So big result for this team. And you know, we say they're veterans, but they're still young athletes and have a lot of years ahead of them in the sport.
29 and 27 years old. They finished 7th at the 2014 Olympics, opening up a big lead, hoping to put some pressure on the Latvians to follow and make themselves a world championship podium team.
Having a great run here, and looks like they will. Oh no!
Falling just behind. So Italy 1-2-4. They're only 17 thousandths out of the lead, but they're in 4th place. That's how tight this race is and how tight the challenge is for the 3rd position on the podium.
And it's really too bad. I think we missed some, potentially some mistakes from this team in the lower section of the track where they have some shades down. Their run looked pretty good from what we saw before that.
Wow, it's such a tight race.
And it's so incredible how tight that is.
So Reeder Keinswaldner continue to lead. They're 1 spot away from a podium. Really quickly, our update from Königssee says nothing serious as of now, right now, from what we hear of the Canadians after their crash. That's good news. If we can update that later, we will for sure. But now concentrating on the final 3. It's the Latvians, Sheiks and Sheiks. 4 World Cup wins in the last 2 years. As we look at Vatsi, the mascot for these World Championships, celebrating down at the bottom. Now, they had a crash on the final portion, the final few meters of the course, Alex, in run number 1, but that still kept them in the top 3. So who knows what they can put together here with a clean run.
It would be really interesting to see what their time would have been had they not crashed. They would have been likely right up there with the Germans. So hopefully they can put together a clean run and similar to their first run and just hold on to it through the last corner of the track.
They will earn their second career World Championship podium to go along with 3 Olympic medals if they can stay in the green. If not, Reeder and Kynes-Waldner will be on the podium. Through the Kreisel, opening it up.
And they have a big lead at this point, about a 10th and a half. Oh, a little tap there, and we're in an uphill section. And again,
that's where their problems were in run number 1, but they cleaned it up a little more here. They are on the podium. Latvia becomes the, now they have their second medal of the weekend. They took silver yesterday in the sprint competition. It's also their second career World Championship 2-run medal. They had a bronze several years ago.
And you can see the relief from the top man. And a couple of little taps here through the final couple of transitions, and able to hold on to his spot and build some time at the end there. So big relief for Andres.
Andres and Urs Sheiks, they continue to get better. Now, this race likely boils down to these final 2 sleds, both from Germany, both in their home country, but the 2 biggest rivals in the sport of luge. The 2 Tobys, yesterday's sprint champions, on course now. They'll be followed by Egert and Bennekin. Together, they have captured virtually all of the Olympic and World Championship titles over the past 6 or 7 years. And the duel keeps on going. The Tobys on course.
And they will definitely be looking to put together a really good run on their home track. And a huge rivalry between them and Tony and Sasha. So.
And they're separated, Alex, by just 0.02 of a second entering run number 2.
And a big lead on the 6 brothers out of S4. They have almost half a second.
How is it that these 2 sleds can separate themselves by so much over everyone else?
The Germans have a lot of sled technology and depth to their program, and with 4 tracks in Germany, you build so much experience, and they dominate the sport for that.
Dominate is an understatement, as they have a gigantic lead, a half second over the Latvians, Germany over Latvia and Italy. So we have now 2 teams clinching podium spots, 1 team remaining at the top, but all good, all perfect for the Bayern Express here in Bavaria.
Yeah. And a really nice line there through the chicanes, and you don't see the Tobys celebrating because they're waiting to see how their teammates do in their second run. They will likely not be happy unless they are
on top.
The top team.
Yes, so entering this World Championship, Wendel and Alt with 3 golds and 3 silvers at past Worlds. And Egert and Bennigan, 3 golds and 3 silvers at past Worlds. 0.02 of a second separating these 2 great German champions, and the World Championship is on the line. The final sled, Tony Egert and Sacha Bennigan.
And they're behind with their start time. We'll see if that changes at all with the split out of the start corner.
Now into the green. Wow, it's amazing how quickly things turn.
It's tricky to tell with the start time. Often it depends on how, especially with doubles, how you hit the light, and then the second split will determine whether you build the velocity coming into the track. Still in the green coming through Kreisel, so they're having a great run.
Now opening it up. These 2 who fell behind Alt and Wendel at the Olympics with the bronze have owned the World Championships over the last several years. Now to the finish, and it's world title number 4 for Tony Egert and Sacha Bennigan.
Congratulations to Egert Bennigan. Great performance from them, and you can tell that means a lot to them to win the World Championships here in Königssee.
And applause from their rivals from Bavaria, Wendel and Alt, who yesterday won the sprint title, but Alex, this is the culmination of what was a rough preseason where Sasha had a neck injury. Both of these two great champions were COVID positive and had to deal with that before the season even began. And now all the way back. And they had a couple of crashes this year, uncharacteristic as well. But now they wear the World Championship title again.
And they do, having a great race here. And you can just see they had really nice lines cleaning up their exit of S4 from the first run. So they just built time the whole way down. Great performance from these two.
Bendel and Alt in second place as they win their 8th career World Championship medal. Egert and Bennigan with their 4th World Championship victory tie the great Germans Leitner Resch with 4 total. A terrific finish as the Germans and the rest of the world. Congratulations to Sheiks and Sheiks for a podium, to the Italians, 3 in the top 6, to Poland with a very respectable 8th place finish, and the Germans put 3 in the top 10. A look at all of the finishers and even the DNFs. We had several crashes.